nothing but when we are introducing this void function, okay, int a comma char b, okay. So what is int? Integer. Correct? What is char here? Character. So I can represent both integer and character with the help of this function. That is function. Correct? Both in a single function. Right? And these two will be called as arguments. Okay? And when we are defining the values to the arguments, we can call it as parameters. Able to understand? Right? Say for an example, int a equal to 10, which I am giving, and b equal to some character a. Okay? And those two are parameters. Right? Okay. So this is a simple function. So you know the syntax format of how the function works. Right? So printf percentage d, which is integer, percentage s, which is your character. Okay, and a comma b. Right. So next, how will you define this function? How will you call this function? Last class we have seen, right? Function of the particular. See, say for an example, if you want to call the function of this. Correct? Last class we have seen. Correct. So when you want to call this particular function, you have to use particular arguments. You have to use function of 10 comma college. Correct? That means you are going to give the print function of 10 comma college over here. This will be our output. Right? So again, if I am going to write this function 20 comma btet, and this will be your output. Right? Okay. So this one we have seen in last class itself. How will you call the functions? Right? And next we'll come to this user defined functions. Okay. So argument, you know the values that are declared within a function, right? So user defined function, this is of 4 types. Okay, the first one is functions with no arguments and no return values. Second one is function with no argument with return values. Third one is function with argument and no return values. And fourth one is function with no argument and with return values. Okay, in this only 2 things you have to notify, right? What is the 2 thing is? No argument, no return. Okay, so what is argument? This is declaring the arguments over here. Okay, different case. The question is, with argument means you have to use this function. Okay, without argument means simply your program should be written. Okay. And with return values means, if it is return value, what you will do? Return type means normally you have to include integer. Correct? Right? Just understand these two, because only these 2 changes will be there in each and every types. Okay, so first we'll see with an example. So functions with no arguments and no return values. Right? So include void my function. Okay, printf, how are you? Void my. I am calling this function. Correct? This same program which I have done in the previous class. Correct? Again, if I call this function, so what is your output here? First it will print how are you. Okay. Again, if I am calling this function, it goes to my function. It will print the printf values. So it will again print how are you. So if I put again my fun means, again it will go to the main functions. Okay, it will print how are you 3 times. Correct? Right. So this is with no argument, no return values. That is simply we are writing the program with no argument and no return values means this is simply defined function. Correct. So when we call function with no argument and with return values. Okay. So no argument means I should not include this argument functions over here. Right. So with return values, I have to include int my function. Int function. So integer should be defined when it comes to return type values. You could understand, right? Apart from that, the program is same. Okay. So printf, how are you? If it is integer, okay. If it is return type, you have to give return 0. Able to understand, right? Then void main, the same main function, it will go to the main function, it will check and it will produce how are you. Okay, so this is your function with no argument with return values. Now you write for this function with argument and no return values. So what is the program? Which program? This. So here with argument means we are going to declare two arguments. Same as one is integer, another one is character. Right? So this is what this program. Correct? Right. The final one, function with no argument with return values means it is, which one is same? No argument means I should not include this void function in A, character B. Correct? Right. So with return values, instead of void, okay, instead of void function, I have to use integer. Correct? Integer. Then return 0. This should be included within this main function, not in this void function. Able to understand? Any doubts in it? See, normally you know how to write the functions. Correct? First write the main functions program. Okay, then you have to call the program. Okay, how will you call? By using this function. Okay, I can call this. How many times if you want to repeat, you can use by using this function. Okay, so the main function, we can call the simple program. How many times if you want, you can do it by calling this functions. First thing, right? So second thing, we are going to introduce arguments in this use. Argument is nothing but this is your argument. I am going to specify integer and character in a single function that we can call it as argument. That is declaring argument into a function. Correct? This is one argument, this is second argument. Correct? Now, you know what is this return type? So return type means instead of using void, you have to write int main. First, second, so it is return, right? So return is null. So you have to write return 0 over here. Able to understand? Can you write this program for this functions with argument and no return values? Function with argument and no return values. So that means simple. Don't write int main and don't write return 0. Instead that you have to use arguments. Correct? Right for this.